3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
So I was thinking, do you have any like small piece of news that you want to fit in at the beginning or something like that? Or what's the plan? We will primarily talk about...
Yeah, what's going on with FTX.
Okay. Do you have the backstory? Hit me.
Have you heard about it? Like they are like facing bankruptcy. So they have this huge like debt problem and they are not able now to financially cover all like their liabilities. And you know the story, of course. So maybe it will be better if you explain it.
No, but like I actually don't. So the only thing I know is that Binance said that they were going to buy like a certain token that FTX was using, like kind of like as a market maker to some extent, but honestly, I don't know the details. So how about you explain what's going on with FTX, how this imminent collapse was building up, the role of Binance in it, etc.
Okay, basically what happened is that FTX started to mine its own cryptocurrency, right? Anything like in very simple terms, what FTX decided to do is like take a bunch of loans with their cryptocurrency as collateral. So yeah, basically that's what happened. Of course, it's much more complicated, right? But they got all these huge amount of liabilities, debt with its own cryptocurrency as collateral, and now their cryptocurrency is not worth much. So
trending towards zero, basically. Right?
Yeah, it's trending towards zero. So yeah, the collateral is basically disappearing, right? As FTX company value is. So yeah, they are facing extinction, basically. And Binance offered to try to save, to buy out, like what you just mentioned. They were trying to buy FTX, or finding a way to basically reach a deal with FTX so that they could, like Binance could take control of FTX. But at the end, the 1 billion debt problem is probably around 6 billion. So there is no way Binance could like financially help FTX with it. So they walk out of that negotiation. No, and probably not because it's not that they don't want to help FTX. Probably they can't. They need to focus on surviving right now. So yeah, really interesting times, crazy times. A lot to talk about. Like, will this be any different if we had regulations, or like the crypto market or the crypto industry had more regulations? Will this have happened? Like, so many good questions.
How is it possible that a currency exchange platform can create its own currency and lend against it? Like, who are they borrowing money from? Like, who would actually trust that type of legal monetary structure?
That's really interesting, because as far as I understand, there is no proper regulation regarding that.
But who was lending the money? Because you said that they were taking out loans. So who was...
Yes, so lots of retail investors. There was a piece of news a few days ago, which I found really that it is not funny for those involved, of course. You know, Tom Brady, right? That's his. I'm not very good with, you know.
Tom Brady, football. American football player.
Tom Brady and Giselle Bonchu.
Yeah.
So I think they have, like, together as a couple, they have like a $650 million US net worth, and they like practically use a lot of their net worth to support FTX. So FTX got a lot of money from big players. You know, like there's a lot of talk about these billionaires or celebrity or sports people, you know, like A players backing up these cryptocurrencies or crypto companies. And at the end, FTX got a lot of money from retail investors, right? And also like different funds that were trying to push this or were believing in this, like, you know, crypto fever, right?
Yeah.
So
I think Sequoia Capital invested $450 million.
That's crazy, you know.
And it's gone now, basically. Like, it's going to zero, right? Like, so basically they're going to declare bankruptcy. How's all of this going to play out?
It's difficult to think, George, that someone will bail out FTX right now.
Yeah.
If Binance couldn't do it, it's just, you know, it's difficult to, you know, Binance is the world's largest exchange, right?
Yeah, we actually use it. We receive payments from clients in Venezuela and also in Argentina. It's becoming
That's
popular.
wonderful. Yeah.
It's becoming pretty popular in countries that have either extreme inflation or in countries that don't have access to the global monetary system. Like, so countries where you can't have access to like a normal debit card or normal credit card, that's where our clients are paying us via Binance.
That's so interesting, George. That's where I think that blockchain and all the technologies behind, like cryptocurrencies or crypto assets, that's where the
only
future
use
is.
Case. It's the only use case,
Yes.
essentially. To me, it's like the only use case. It's in like failed economies. So which is why I like, that I'm a skeptic in terms of
I know.
blockchain and cryptocurrencies, etc. And even though I'm a customer, like not a customer, I'm like actually a user. Like my company actually uses it to solve a real problem, but it's like in the extreme cases. It's like the edge cases. It's like basically a failed state with Venezuela, and then like a completely failed economy with Argentina. That's like that's the only scenarios where it actually makes sense to use these type of platforms. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're receiving these payments and then we're converting them to Mexican pesos or to dollars right away. So
yes,
but it's kind of I think I continue to be extremely skeptical in terms of like cryptocurrencies and even the blockchain technology in general. I think ultimately it's like a different type of, it's a decentralized database, right? But you could also always argue that like a centralized database makes a lot more sense for a lot of different use cases. So I continue to remain like an extreme skeptic, even though I'm a user, or like my company makes use of it.
There is a lot of future in the blockchain and these like technologies. I don't know. I think, for example, smart contracts, that could be really interesting. Like thinking about succession, like inheritance, and this idea in NFTs where you could like just use blockchain to protect your property rights, and every time something which you created, you receive some sort of royalty or payment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really, really interesting, and I think that it's amazing how similar this is to the 2000s or late 90s and early 2000s. We had this huge financial bubble, the bubble of bubbles, right?
Mm-hmm.
The everything bubble, they are calling it, and it's similar to how innovation was like just mad in the 1990s, coming to the early 2000s. And lots of those crazily valued companies that disappeared after that dot-com crash. The good ones, the companies that had a true vision, that they had a clear like business model, and that their fundamentals were right. These are the Amazons today, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I think this is really healthy. A lot of suffering will come, but I think this will help to clean out all of that. What happens when you have a lot of money and really cheap money?
Yeah.
So
it's not used efficiently, basically.
Yes, basically. So and this relates to Meta.
Yeah. Before we get to Meta, I do want to one final point around blockchain, NFTs, etc. And I'm going to push back a little bit on it, because I don't know if it's like false pattern matching, because people are like, oh, blockchain is kind of like the early 2000s, and like there are going to be some huge companies coming from this, and like the use cases are still not that clear. And I mean, like I'm pretty familiar with some, like I like played around with it a little bit, and like I understand that NFTs can be used for art, for example, right? So there's like you can have digital art. It's a new type of canvas. You can have art that is responsive to certain events, etc. So it's like it's a new canvas. So I think NFTs for art probably makes sense. Whether that is actually like a 10x improvement, I'm not sure. Like it's something different, but I don't know if it's like a 10x improvement. Like if you then compare the internet was like a 1000x improvement compared to like old communication technologies, So, and I mean, NFT seems to be like the only like use case that already has users, like like has massive adoption in terms of blockchain technology. And then the other use cases, certificates backed by NFTs, and like you can transfer the rights really, really easily. Like instead of having to like transfer the actual asset, you can just transfer the NFT to someone. But I feel like you can also do that with like some other type of digital certificate. And honestly, I think then like so one thing that I actually was excited about like 5 years ago was property rights, like just land rights, ownership rights, etc. And specifically in emerging markets where there's really, really big obstacles and a lot of insecurity around like property rights, who owns the land, etc. And like one idea was, we're going to have like smart contracts executed on Ethereum that are going to solve this problem. Like it's going to solve the problem of like uncertain property rights, and it's going to create like a lot of stability, etc. in that sector. But honestly, I think that there are cultural aspects that are actually way more important, that are like unique to these countries. Like if there's like a corrupt politician who wants to seize your land, like show me that politician who's going to say, oh no, there's like a smart contract, like I'm not going to seize the land now, like it's not really going to happen. So I think that, I don't know, I'm a bit disillusioned with the progress of blockchain, because it's now been a decade, like over a decade, that the technology is available, and we haven't really been able to do anything interesting yet. So I remain really, really skeptical.
I mean, you have a great point. And to be honest, I think that some people felt like this. They had a similar feeling back in the early 2000s, like just seeing the amount of tech companies, which failed back then. Like, it was crazy. But
but the underlying technology made sense. Right, like there were like like e-commerce now made like gave you all the books in the world available at your fingertips, and that will arrive to your house in like 7 days or 14 days. And there was like clear signs that this is like the use cases were already really, really well established. So like I think it remains to be seen. It's like to be decided whether they're going to be actual like mass market use cases for NFTs
really
or smart contracts, etc. I think it's definitely not as clear as it was in the early 2000s, because I think in the early 2000s
e-commerce
like there were people that were already like using the internet to do real things that were like making your life better. Like that was already happening. Like, and there was no denying, like everyone was doing something with the internet that was making their own personal lives better. Like early 2000s, we were using the internet to do amazing things, whether that was like chatting with friends or illegally downloading music or anything like that. Like it was actually things that were making our lives better. Like the technology was having like a direct impact on everyone's life. And with blockchain, I think it's really I think we should remain a little bit skeptical.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I mean, I think all this idea about like taking away the middleman, decentralization, if that's the proper way to say it, like decentralized transactions and whatever. I think there is value there, because the middleman, like banks and all these intermediaries, like they build a huge industry around the world. Like it's worth billions and billions of US dollars. So there is a market there for like being the middleman is and I mean, I don't know if because you mentioned like cultural things, and that's totally true. I don't know if, for example, let's say the case in Mexico and other countries in Latin America. So if you want to like protect your property rights, let's say that you own a piece of land, the way to say, okay, this is my piece of land is, first of all, if you want to see the legal way, okay, it's because you have like, this document from a notary. So I don't know if that blockchain sometimes I think that blockchain and this kind of technology will not replace that notary, but it could make the very lengthy process and old-fashioned process maybe more efficient. I'm not sure. I agree with you, but my point is, if blockchain helps to get away, intermediaries, to this idea about decentralization, that's a huge market or a huge industry. Like, transaction fees, which is funny because, like transaction costs with cryptocurrency are so expensive, like it makes no sense right now. There is any way around that. It is a huge industry, George. Like, basically, let's see what happens.
And we'll have to see Well,
But
yeah, let's see what happens. Let's see what
one
happens.
final point. Today, I agree that the crypto market, like the crypto asset market, is basically a speculation arena, right? Like, I don't think that like cryptocurrencies are currencies. Like this, Bitcoin, it's more of a speculative asset to me.
Yeah, like a speculative store of value or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. But generally, you're saying, and I agree that this is like healthy for the markets. I think that a lot of talent was being wasted, a lot of dollars as well on these type of projects, and it's probably very, very healthy for the market to like refocus on doing things and just flushing out all this distraction.